Guys, Mr. Seek here. In this video, I will be talking about T-side default. It's more of a general topic. It's not map specific like my other videos. This one's just it's about why I do defaults and why my calls might seem boring, because I call the same thing every round, and sort of let you guys know what you can do to give, like, what information you can tell me so that I can vary the calls without running into a stack or something. So, default. At its core, a default is to establish map control and punish CT aggression. That's the idea. Very basic version. Everyone knows from Pugs, where one guy goes palace, one guy goes ramp, two guys go mid, one guy goes B-apps. And then there's stuff that teams run, where it's like two guys go towards A, three guys go towards mid, and we're letting them have apartments. We're saying, hey, if you wanna risk pushing through apartments, you can do that. I won't stop you. Why is map control important? It's the next logical question. And why it's important is that when at the beginning of the round, one of the advantages that CTs have is they get to pick their positions. They get to pick based on what weapons they have, based on what nades they have, based on their skill set, based on what we've done in previous rounds, where to set up. For example, they can set up at default and triple. They can set up at stairs and under balcony. They can push palace. They can push ramp. They can do some sort of bait setup where they've got one player, like they smoke palace, and then they've got one player like peeking ramp like this, maybe like just popping up, just crouch peeking like this, pop, pop, and as soon as he sees anything, he throws a flash, and then this guy peeks with a flash. They got all sorts of like they get to pick what they want to do. But say they're pushed up ramp, and we take mid control. Suddenly they're screwed, because the guy playing stairs connector now has to worry about palace, ramp, and connector, possibly even jungle. So they're gonna have we sort of force their hand. They can either let themselves get pinched, or they can push something. For example, that's common play. But if we've got someone here, he's got a good, like, especially if he's here, he won't get flashed. He gets an easy kill. I mean, I wish AKs were more accurate on the first shot and you'd be able to get that kill more often, but you've still got a pretty good shot at getting that kill, because you get the first bullet. So that's what that's sort of why map control is so important, is it narrows down the number of viable setups for the CT. Like if we have mid control, they can have two people watching apartments. They don't need anyone watching mid. Sorry, I think I got that backwards. If the CTs have map control, they can have two people watching apartments and an AWPer holding mid. But if they don't have map control, you might have to set up crossfire between, like this. One guy there and one guy in sight somewhere, who also has to worry about apps. And then there's, of course, a lot of times you need some kind of map control in order to take the bomb site. Mid is very useful, even though there's so many angles. But if you have connector control, taking A is so much easier. Anyway, enough about that. So the second reason is So not only are you narrowing down the possible setups for the CT, but you can also kind of guess, at least if you watch a lot of demos, you can guess how they're set up, because they will throw different nades based on how they're set up. I think I've said set up maybe 8 times in the last 10 seconds. So if you know that they've smoked ramp and they've re-smoked ramp, that means they have no more smokes, which means they're probably playing pretty passive. They're probably both in sight. They probably haven't pushed Palace. They probably aren't opping ramp. That might be the most important thing, is if they throw a smoke, there's probably not an op holding the smoke, because usually ops are considered more valuable at holding an angle than throwing a smoke and just having a rifler hold it. Let's see, what else could you tell? Oh, so if when you take mid, you throw window smoke and hit the window smoke ideally. Did I miss it again? No, I hit it the second time. If you throw the window smoke and they throw smokes bottom of connector and cat, you know that there's probably only one A and one B, and they're focusing on mid. And this would be a good time. This would be a good time to walk out A. Like if you had 3 mid, 1 ramp, and 1 palace, this would be the time. Like have the mid player like distract the connector player, and have the other two, and have 2 guys push out A and try and trade on the last guy. Try and trade on whoever's left on the site. Because if you kill that guy, suddenly the connector player has 2 guys on A site to worry about and the mid players to worry about. So you can glean a lot of information about what utility is being used, where you see people across the map, and you really need a default to establish how the CTs are playing it. Okay, so the last thing is let's see how long is the video been. Okay, I'll briefly touch it. The last thing that a default lets you do is it lets you lurk. Without a default, you can't really lurk. The lurking is where you use one of your players in a default to either manipulate or to just plainly exploit CT rotations. And the reason you need a default to do this is because you need to establish map control in order to force rotations. So if you have mid control, for instance, and then you throw A smokes, that is going to cause a serious rotation. Probably a bigger rotation than if you threw A smokes and you didn't have mid control. So it's because sometimes when you throw A smokes, you might have 2 people and the bomb and apps. Like that's very possible. Yeah, it's very possible for to do some kind of fake. But if you have mid control and you throw A smoke, it's much less likely to have anyone B. So a lot of times, like I on CT side, I play Van. If I know we don't have mid control, and usually this is smoked off, if we don't have mid control and they throw A smokes, I'm throwing this flash immediately, and I'm through. I'm taking kitchen, and I'm like pistol out. I'm going this way. I'm going connector. So if you're a lurker and say say you threw, like at the beginning of the round, you threw the top mid smoke and went apps. And then what happened is you, let's see, so how would you take mid control and then go back and throw ace smokes? So you threw that smoke, and then one guy went out top mid and threw the window smoke, and then ran back. No, that wouldn't work, would it? I don't know. I guess it would work. And then you could, like, if they're not fighting for mid control, that's how it would work. Then the other three guys would throw the ace smokes, and you probably wouldn't bother throwing a jungle smoke. You just because you've got someone pushing up connector to hold this. Anyway, so what lurking would do is you would. I mean, lurking is not very effective on Mirage anyway. But what you could do is you could come out here and hold this angle, and wait for the that'll be broken, and wait for the B player to rotate through, and try and hold him up. Or you might, if you miss that shot, you might rotate this way and try and get anyone rotating mid to connector. Or got lots of options. You can also do fakes if you have mid control. If you don't have any, if you have map control. If you don't have any map control, you can't do fakes, because suddenly you throw ace smokes, and then you've got to retake B apps. Like if you don't have B apps control, you can't sprint through with your knife out, because as soon as you get here, there's 4 angles to check. But if you have a terrorist player staying right here waiting for the push, that'll work. So I've gone on too long already, but this has been like why defaults are so important and why I call them all the time.